A high-class retirement dinner was in full swing at one of Lagos' most luxurious hotel ballrooms. The chandeliers sparkled overhead, soft music played, and waiters moved like shadows between tables, serving wine and champagne. Every seat was taken. Family friends, business partners, and society elites had gathered to celebrate Mr. Johnson's retirement after 35 years of running his company. Amelia Johnson sat quietly at the second table, her fingers laced with her husband Daniel's. She had spent weeks convincing her father to let her attend tonight, hoping this dinner would be a chance to mend things. She had dressed carefully, a simple but elegant emerald gown, wanting to look like the daughter her father used to be proud of. She turned to Daniel, who gave her a small, reassuring smile. "It'll be fine," he whispered. Amelia tried to believe him. The evening moved along smoothly until it was time for the toasts. Mr. Johnson, tall and imposing even in his 60s, stood at the head of the room with a glass of champagne. The room went quiet as he spoke about legacy, hard work, and family. Amelia sat straighter, waiting for him to glance her way. But then his tone changed. "Family," he said, his deep voice echoing across the hall. "It is the most important thing a man can leave behind. But some people forget what it means to respect that family name." The words stung, but Amelia forced herself to smile politely. And then he looked straight at her. "My daughter," he said sharply, pointing toward her. The room turned to stare. "Amelia has chosen to shame this family. She has married a man." His voice hardened. "Beneath our status. Against my wishes." The air left Amelia's lungs. Whispers spread quickly across the tables. Daniel's hand tightened around hers, but before she could respond, her father's face darkened. "You have no shame," he said loudly, "parading him here in my moment, as if I will pretend everything is fine." "Daddy, please." Amelia tried to stand, but Mr. Johnson was already striding toward her. In one swift motion, he grabbed her by the arm and yanked her up from her seat. Gasps filled the room. "You do not belong here," he hissed, dragging her toward the exit. "A daughter who disrespects her father has no place under this roof." The music stopped. The clinking of glasses fell silent. Everyone was watching. Daniel rose slowly from his chair, his jaw tight, his eyes locked on Mr. Johnson. He didn't shout. He didn't move toward them. He just stood there, silent and steady, a quiet storm building in his chest. The ballroom was frozen, guests wide-eyed, waiting to see what would happen next. And in that terrible silence, Amelia felt the ground shift beneath her feet. This was no longer just a private family fight. This was war. Raised in wealth, controlled by her father's iron hand, Amelia had never truly been free. Growing up in the Johnson mansion meant living by strict rules. What she could wear, who she could spend time with, even which hobbies were appropriate for a Johnson. Her father believed that the family name was everything, and every choice Amelia made was meant to reflect the family's status. She had been told who to date, which schools to attend, and what career to pursue. When she once mentioned wanting to be an artist, her father laughed in her face. "You're a Johnson," he said. "You will study business. You will run a company one day, not waste your life playing with colors." So Amelia obeyed, at least on the surface. She went to business school. She smiled at dinners. She dressed the way he wanted. But inside, she always felt like she was holding her breath. Everything changed when she met Daniel. Daniel was nothing like the men her father had tried to set her up with, polished, arrogant bankers and CEOs. Daniel was a hard-working lawyer from a middle-class family. He was ambitious, yes, but not obsessed with money or appearances. He listened when Amelia spoke, truly listened, as if her thoughts mattered. Their connection was instant. Late-night talks turned into coffee dates into long drives by the ocean. With Daniel, Amelia felt like she could be herself, messy, emotional, imperfect, and still be loved. But when Mr. Johnson found out about Daniel, he was furious. "A lawyer," he spat, as though the word were an insult. "Middle class? Do you think I raised you to throw away everything we built on a man like that?" For the first time in her life, Amelia said no. She refused to break up with Daniel. 6 months ago, they married quietly, in a small garden ceremony with only a few close friends. No Johnson relatives attended. Amelia's father refused to walk her down the aisle, saying she had lost the right to call herself his daughter. Since that day, Mr. Johnson had not spoken to her. Amelia's mother stayed silent through it all. She never defended her daughter, never challenged her husband's anger. Whenever Amelia called, her mother's voice was soft and tired. "Try to understand your father," she would say. "He only wants what's best for you." Then there was Marcus, Amelia's younger brother, the golden child. Marcus could do no wrong. When he failed a class in school, their father called it a learning experience. When Amelia failed, it was a disgrace. Marcus was praised for every achievement, spoiled with gifts, and always put first. And Amelia? She was called too emotional, too dramatic, and rebellious. Despite the pain, Amelia's love for Daniel remained unshaken. He had become her safe place, the one person who never made her feel small. But the shadow of her father's disapproval hung over their marriage like a storm cloud. Every time Amelia saw her phone light up with a message from the Johnson family group chat, her heart would race. Most of the time, she wasn't even included in the conversations. When she was, Marcus would find a way to remind her that she had betrayed the family. Tonight's dinner had been her chance to fix things. When the invitation for Mr. Johnson's retirement celebration arrived, Amelia had stared at it for a long time. Part of her wanted to tear it up, but another part, the little girl inside who still craved her father's approval, hoped this was a sign that he was ready to forgive her. "This could be our chance," she told Daniel as they got ready that evening. Daniel, ever patient, had nodded. "If he's ready to talk, we'll listen." "But Amelia," he said gently, "we go as equals. You don't have to beg for his love." Amelia had smiled at him, grateful, but deep down she was terrified. She wanted her father to see Daniel the way she did, strong, kind, and worthy of respect. As they walked into the grand hotel ballroom, Amelia's heart had pounded. She spotted her father at the head of the room, smiling and shaking hands with guests. For a moment, hope bloomed in her chest. Maybe tonight would be different. She didn't know that the night would end with her father dragging her out of the hall, shattering whatever fragile bridge had been left between them. Mr. Johnson's voice cut through the ballroom like a knife. "This man," he said, pointing at Daniel, "is a mistake. And you," his cold eyes locked on Amelia, "you are an embarrassment to this family." The words hit Amelia like a slap. Her chest tightened, and she could feel every eye in the room turn toward her. The music stopped, conversations froze. "Daddy, please," she began softly, but he didn't let her finish. "You dare bring him here?" Mr. Johnson thundered. "After everything I have done for you, this is how you repay me? By marrying beneath your status and parading him in front of my friends." Amelia's face burned. She could hear the whispers spreading around the room, quick and sharp like the hiss of a snake. Daniel sat very still, his hand still holding hers. His jaw was tight, but he said nothing. "Stand up," Mr. Johnson ordered. When Amelia didn't move, he strode across the room, grabbed her arm, and yanked her to her feet. Gasps filled the hall. Glasses clinked against tables as people turned to stare. "You will not sit at my table and disgrace me," Mr. Johnson said through clenched teeth. "A daughter who disrespects her father has no place here." He pulled her toward the door, his grip hard enough to make her wince. "Daddy, stop!" Amelia cried, trying to pull back. She could feel tears prick her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Daniel rose from his chair, but he didn't rush forward. He didn't shout or try to grab Mr. Johnson's arm. He just stood tall, his dark eyes locked on Amelia's father. The quiet strength in his posture was louder than any words. The room went so silent you could hear someone's fork drop to the floor. For the first time, Mr. Johnson hesitated. His grip on Amelia's arm loosened, just slightly, but he didn't let go. "Let her go." Daniel's voice was calm, low, but it carried across the room. Mr. Johnson turned his head, meeting Daniel's stare. For a moment, no one moved. The tension was heavy, almost unbearable. Amelia stood between them, her heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear. This was no longer just about a family argument. It wasn't just about status or respect. It was about her marriage, her dignity, her future. Slowly, Mr. Johnson released her arm, but his words were sharp enough to cut. "You can stay," he said bitterly, "but you are no daughter of mine." He turned and walked back to his seat, raising his glass again as if nothing had happened. But nothing about the room was the same. Whispers swirled through the tables. Some guests looked away in pity, others in shock. Marcus sat smirking, enjoying every second of his sister's humiliation. Amelia stood frozen for a moment, her arm throbbing where her father had grabbed her. Daniel stepped forward and gently took her hand, guiding her back to her chair. "Sit," he whispered softly, his voice steady. "Don't give him the satisfaction." Amelia sank into her seat, her whole body trembling. Her father spoke again, his voice loud and proud, moving on with his speech as though nothing had happened. But Amelia wasn't listening. All she could feel was the heavy silence around her. All she could see were the eyes watching her, judging her. This was no longer just a family fight. This was public. This was unforgettable. Amelia realized then, her father wasn't just angry. He wanted to break her. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't sure she would let him. Shame and love collided inside Amelia's chest. Part of her wanted to run after her father, to beg him to forgive her, to do whatever it took to stop the burning humiliation that filled the room. Another part of her wanted to turn away from him completely, to stand beside Daniel, and prove that she was no longer the scared little girl he could control. Her legs felt heavy, as if rooted to the floor. Daniel's hand was steady on hers. He guided her gently back into her seat. "Don't give him the satisfaction," he whispered, just for her. His voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. Amelia swallowed hard and nodded. She could feel every pair of eyes in the ballroom on her. Some were filled with pity, others with judgment. She heard faint murmurs coming from the next table, guests whispering to one another, pretending to sip their drinks. "This is what happens when children stop listening to their parents," one woman said under her breath. "I always thought she was too soft," another man replied. "Such a shame, after everything her father did for her." Marcus sat at their table, sipping his wine slowly, a smirk tugging at the corner of his lips. He didn't say anything, but the gleam in his eyes said everything. He was enjoying her humiliation. Amelia's mother sat on the far side of the room, her head slightly bowed. She didn't look at Amelia, didn't speak, didn't move to intervene. That hurt more than the words. Daniel squeezed her hand again. "Breathe," he murmured. She tried. Her chest felt tight, like she couldn't get enough air. Her father's voice boomed from the front of the room again, loud and proud as he continued his speech, as if nothing had just happened. "And so, as I step down from my position, I am proud to leave behind a company that carries my name, my values." Amelia barely heard him. Her ears were ringing, her eyes fixed on the tablecloth in front of her. Why did he hate Daniel so much? It wasn't just about money. It couldn't be. Daniel was hardworking, respectable, a good man. Anyone who spent 5 minutes with him could see that. But her father never even tried. She glanced at Daniel. He was sitting tall, calm, but she could feel the tension radiating off him. His jaw was tight, his knuckles pale where his hands rested on the table. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't stormed out. He was holding it all in. And that was somehow more powerful than shouting would have been. "Are you okay?" she whispered. Daniel turned his head toward her, his dark eyes softening. "I've fine. But this can't go on forever, Amelia." She knew what he meant. This fight with her father wasn't just one dinner. It wasn't going to end tonight or tomorrow. Something deeper was driving Mr. Johnson's anger, something more than pride. Amelia's stomach twisted. Daniel leaned closer. "I've kept quiet out of respect for you," he said softly. "But I think it's time we stop letting him control everything." "What do you mean?" Amelia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel hesitated, glancing around to make sure no one could overhear. "Your father and I crossed paths long before you and I started dating." Amelia frowned. "What?" Daniel looked straight into her eyes. "I know something about him, Amelia. Something he never wanted you to find out. I didn't think it was my place to tell you before. But after tonight," he shook his head. "He doesn't just hate me for who I am. He hates me for what I know." Amelia's breath caught in her throat. "What do you know?" she asked, her heart beating faster. Daniel didn't answer right away. He looked past her, toward the head of the room where Mr. Johnson stood, toasting to his own greatness. "Not here," Daniel said finally. "But soon." Amelia felt a chill run down her spine. She turned her eyes back to her father, watching him raise his glass, smiling for the cameras, the picture of a perfect, powerful man. Her father's voice filled the room, but Amelia barely heard it anymore. The shame that had burned in her chest moments ago was slowly hardening into something else. Resolve. Daniel's calm presence beside her made her feel stronger. For years, she had been afraid to stand against her father. Tonight, for the first time, she started to wonder what it would feel like to stop being afraid. When the waiters began clearing plates and bringing out dessert, the whispers around the tables grew louder. She should have left with her father, someone muttered. Look at her sitting there like nothing happened, another said. Amelia's hands trembled under the table. She wasn't sure if it was from anger or from holding back tears. Daniel's fingers found hers again. We'll get through this, he said quietly. She nodded, but inside her, something was shifting. Tonight was supposed to be about reconciliation. Instead, it had become a public war, one she could no longer ignore. Her father wanted to teach her a lesson, to break her spirit in front of everyone. But maybe tonight was the moment she finally learned the lesson for herself. She didn't need her father's approval to live her life. Still, she knew Daniel was right. The fight wasn't over. Not until the truth came out, whatever truth he was holding back. And when it did, she suspected the whole world would know. When Mr. Johnson raised his glass for his final toast, the room fell quiet again. Cameras clicked as the waiters paused to listen. To family, he said proudly, his voice booming across the hall. To legacy. To honor. Enough. The voice came from the second table. Calm. Steady. But it cut through the room like thunder. All eyes turned. Daniel stood, tall and composed, his hand resting lightly on the back of Amelia's chair. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with quiet fire. This has gone far enough, he said. A ripple of shock passed through the room. No one had ever dared interrupt Mr. Johnson at his own event. Mr. Johnson lowered his glass slowly. Excuse me. Daniel didn't flinch. You've spent this entire evening humiliating your daughter. You've tried to humiliate me. But I think it's time everyone here knows the truth about the man they're toasting. Gasps echoed around the hall. Marcus sat up straighter, suddenly alert. Mr. Johnson's face turned dark. You will sit down now. No, Daniel said simply. He reached into his suit pocket and pulled out a small folder. 6 years ago, Daniel began, his voice clear. This company you're so proud of was about to face a public scandal. Millions of naira went missing from company accounts. Everyone thought it was theft. The room was silent. Even the waiters stopped moving. But it wasn't theft, Daniel continued. It was a cover-up. He opened the folder and held up a document. These are the settlement papers. Signed by you. Mr. Johnson's jaw tightened. You moved company funds, Daniel said, his tone still calm but unshakable. Not for business, not for charity, but to pay off Marcus's gambling debts. All heads turned toward Marcus. His smirk disappeared. Daniel kept going. I was the lawyer brought in to handle it quietly, to protect your family name. If I hadn't negotiated with your creditors and kept the matter sealed, your company's reputation would have been destroyed. You might have gone to prison. Gasps filled the hall again. Whispers broke out, louder this time. Amelia felt her heart pound. She turned to her father, who stood frozen, his face pale with fury. You knew about this? She asked in a trembling voice. Mr. Johnson didn't answer. Daniel stepped closer to the center of the room. I didn't tell anyone back then, he said, because I believed protecting this family was the right thing to do. I thought I was helping you. His voice softened. But the truth is, you never forgave me for it, because I saw you at your weakest. And a man like you cannot stand to be seen weak. Mr. Johnson's chest heaved. You dare. Yes, Daniel said firmly. Idare. Because I am done watching you destroy Amelia just to protect your pride. The hall was buzzing now, guests whispering. Phones out, some recording. Amelia's mother pressed a hand to her lips, her eyes wide with tears. You humiliate her, Daniel said, his voice growing stronger. Because deep down you know she is stronger than you. She chose love over fear. And that terrifies you. Mr. Johnson's face was red now, but he said nothing. His hand tightened around his glass until it almost slipped from his grip. Amelia stood slowly, her hands shaking. Is it true? She asked her father, her voice soft but clear. Mr. Johnson looked at her, and for the first time, Amelia saw something she had never seen before. Not anger, not control, but fear. He didn't answer. And in that silence, Amelia had her answer. The image of her father as an untouchable, perfect man shattered like glass. Gasps and murmurs filled the hall. Marcus was staring at the table, his face pale. Daniel closed the folder and placed it on the nearest table. I didn't come here tonight to fight you, he said quietly. But I will not let you keep hurting her. The ballroom seemed to hold its breath. Amelia looked at Daniel, the man who had just risked everything to defend her. Something inside her clicked into place. Her father's power over her was gone. For the first time, she saw him not as the towering figure who had ruled her life, but as a man who had made mistakes and was too proud to admit them. The room felt different now. The shame she had carried all evening melted away, replaced by something fierce and strong. Amelia reached for Daniel's hand and squeezed it tight. She was done being silent. She stands beside Daniel in front of everyone, her hands shaking but her head held high. For the first time that evening, she does not feel small. She does not look at her father for approval. She looks only at Daniel. I'm not leaving with you, Dad, Amelia says clearly. Her voice carries through the hall. I'm staying with my husband. Gasps ripple through the room. For a moment, the whole place feels frozen. Mr. Johnson's face turns red, his jaw tight with rage. You will regret this, he hisses. No, Amelia answers, her voice steadier now. I've spent my whole life regretting that I never stood up for myself. That ends today. Daniel steps closer to her, one hand gently on her back. You don't have to fight him alone anymore, he says softly. Then, something no one expects happens. Mrs. Johnson finally speaks. She rises from her chair, her hands trembling as she looks at her daughter. Go, she whispers. Live free. It is quiet, but Amelia hears every word. Her mother does not stop her this time. She does not look away. For the first time, Amelia sees a flicker of pride in her mother's eyes. Mr. Johnson's control is slipping. His voice rises, but the room no longer respects him. Some guests look away, others shake their heads in quiet judgment. Daniel faces him calmly. A father who humiliates his own daughter, he says, has already lost everything worth honoring. The words land like a final blow. Mr. Johnson freezes, then grabs his glass and throws it down on the table, storming out of the hall without another word. Silence follows him out. Amelia feels her knees weaken, but Daniel holds her steady. She realizes something deep inside her heart. Her father's power over her is gone. People slowly return to talking, pretending the night can go back to normal. But Amelia knows everything has changed. She feels lighter, as if a heavy weight has been lifted from her shoulders. Daniel leans closer. Are you okay? She nods, tears brimming in her eyes. Yes, she whispers. For the first time, I am. Together, they leave the hall hand in hand. It does not matter what the whispers say behind them. Amelia has chosen her life, her love, and her freedom. Outside, the night air feels cool and fresh. She breathes it in deeply, as if she is breathing for the first time. This isn't the end, you know, Daniel says gently. No, Amelia replies, her lips curving into a small but strong smile. It's the beginning. They walk away together, their steps steady, leaving behind the broken shadow of the man who once controlled her. Amelia and Daniel leave the ballroom hand in hand. The heavy music and the whispers fade behind them. The cool night air hits Amelia's face, and she feels as if she can finally breathe. For the first time in years, she does not feel like a prisoner of her father's name. They stop just outside the grand doors. Amelia glances back once, through the tall glass windows. The glittering ballroom now feels small, almost distant, as if it belongs to a different life. Her chest rises and falls as relief washes over her. He can't hurt me anymore, she whispers, her voice breaking softly. Daniel turns to her, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. No, he says gently, he can't. You took that power back tonight. Amelia looks down at their joined hands. All her life, she had tried to please her father, to earn his approval with perfect grades, polite smiles, and silence whenever he was cruel. Tonight, she had broken that silence. For a moment, she feels tears sting her eyes, but they are not tears of shame. They are tears of release. Thank you, she says, her voice steadier now. Thank you for giving me back my voice. Daniel smiles, but there is no pride in it, only love. You had it all along, he tells her. You just needed to remember. A light breeze moves through the courtyard, carrying away the tension that had clung to her all night. Somewhere inside, she knows her father is raging, shouting at the staff, demanding the guests forget what they saw. But it no longer matters. His storm is not hers to carry. They walk down the marble steps slowly. Each step feels like shedding a chain. I was so afraid, Amelia admits quietly. Daniel squeezes her hand. You were brave. She nods, finally believing it. When they reach the car, she pauses. She doesn't want to run away in shame this time. She wants to stand in the open night and feel free. Let's walk for a bit, she says. So they walk down the quiet street, away from the lights of the party. Her heels click softly against the pavement. For the first time, Amelia does not hear her father's voice in her head telling her what to do, how to act, who to be. She feels like herself. You know, she says with a small laugh. He's probably rewriting his will right now. Daniel chuckles. Let him. You've got everything you need right here. They stop at a corner where the street is silent, only the moon watching them. Amelia turns to him, her eyes shining with the kind of calm she hasn't felt since childhood. I don't care about the house, or the money, or the name. She takes a deep breath. I just want peace. Daniel steps closer, resting his forehead against hers. Then that's what we'll build. Together. For a long moment, they just stand there, letting the quiet hold them. Amelia's last tear slips down her cheek, but she is smiling as it falls. Inside that ballroom, her father may still be shouting. Her brother may still be smirking. But here, under the night sky, she is free. And that is how it ends. Not with a scream, not with a fight, but with a woman walking away, hand in hand with the man she loves, no longer afraid of the man who once tried to control her. The night is cool, the world feels new, and Amelia is finally, fully her own. Hi friends, thanks for watching all the way to the end. If you felt Amelia's journey, don't forget to like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more powerful stories. See you next time.